Hi, I'm Dave Harrison, and I wrote a fiction novel called Cutthroats, The Tight Line Between Guilt and Innocence. I want to thank the Boulder Bookstore for giving me this opportunity to talk about the book with you by this video. This is a book about Fred Davidson, who was a criminal defense lawyer in Boulder for years. And one of the ways that he dealt with the stress of that job was to go fly fishing. But one day, when he was fly fishing in the mountains west of Boulder, he came upon something that completely upended his world and threw him into the criminal justice system that he had been defending people in for years. The inspiration for the book was trading short stories with a friend of mine, and then I realized that I wanted to write something that was from the defense perspective, the defendant and the defense attorney, because I realized so many books and so many TV shows and movies are set from the prosecution side. In other words, some event happens and they're trying to find the criminal that committed the event and the process they go through, etc. And so I just thought it was important to have a story where it's told from the defense side, to give the other side of the story and give people a look into that. The main storyline is fiction, but the interactions between people in the criminal justice system, the defense attorney and the prosecutors, and the defense and the judge, and the prosecutor and the judge, and also the events that happened during the hearings and the trials in the case in the book were all based on things that occurred while I was practicing criminal defense in Boulder over 40 years. So they're based on true events. I wrote about and set the book in the Boulder area because, Boulder's just a beautiful, fascinating place that deserves to be showcased. Also, I've lived here in the area since 1974, and readers will recognize some of the mountain areas discussed, some of the areas around the town of Boulder, some of the restaurants, and that type of thing. For me, for this book, the writing process and looking back on it went a lot like the way I prepared for jury trials when I was practicing law, and that is start with the closing argument, or start with the end of the book, and then have things in the book lead to the end. So all the necessary pieces end up in the book to get to the end. So obviously I had time periods when I was not writing at all, other time periods when I was making myself write an hour a day. And then as it got closer to being done, or feeling like it was done, then there was a lot of rewriting and reordering things and reorganizing things, that type of thing. So that was my process. Myself, as far as reading, I like to read books by Peter Heller. I like the way he writes, and I think he's very good at telling stories. So books like The Guide and The River. I also like Stephen King books, especially the ones that aren't based on horribly scary stories, like November 22nd, based on the butterfly effect. I think his latest was called The Doctor, and I enjoyed that. I think he's such a good writer, and any other writer can learn a lot from him. Writing this book was, in hindsight, turned out to be very therapeutic. That's the best word I can come up with. Because as a person in the criminal justice system, frankly, whether you're a defense attorney or a prosecutor or a judge or a law enforcement officer, you see a lot of things that are difficult. some would describe it as secondary trauma in some cases. But so I had, over the years, a lot of things that sort of stuck in my head as I drove around town. I would remember something that happened at this intersection, some tragic accident that happened at that intersection, a robbery that would happen in a certain place. And I found, much to my surprise, that in getting it out on paper and out of my head, it was a very positive thing. So the process was very therapeutic for me. I want to read a short passage from the book. Fred Davidson has found something in the stream that led to the sheriff's department doing some investigation and that kind of thing, and he started feeling more and more like maybe he was being treated like a suspect. So this passage is in chapter 6, so partway into the book. So the next morning he got to the office a little earlier than usual, as he was anxious to see if he could find anything that would help him establish that he was at the office last Wednesday afternoon. He knew Jameson would call or stop by, and he wanted to be ready with anything that helped with what was feeling more and more like an alibi. Poring through the client files, both the hard copies and the digital files on the computer, he only found some legal research for a motion in one of his DUI cases with a timestamp of that day. The problem was that he could not provide that document to Jameson because it would give away his approach in that client's case. His first duty always had to be to his clients, even at the risk of not saving himself. Every lawyer has a duty to protect their client. It was enshrined in the rules of ethics for lawyers. He could not show what he had to Jameson. That was a problem because now he had nothing but the ability to tell Jameson he did have proof he was working at the office that afternoon. He just could not give it to him. He hoped maybe it wouldn't matter because the coroner would find that the death was an accidental drowning or something. He started returning voicemail messages from the day before, comforting the clients about their cases and responding to emails from the day before. As the day wore on, he forgot all about the death. It was about 4:15 that afternoon when his phone rang. His receptionist told him Detective Jameson and Goodman were in the lobby and wanted to see him. As he went downstairs to the lobby, slowly taking the steps down the 100-year-old staircase in that old mansion that had held his office for over 35 years, he tried to practice what he would say, or whether he would say anything. At the bottom of the stairs, Jameson and Goodman stood in full uniform waiting for him. "Hey," he said, "you want to come up to my office and talk a bit?" "Sure," Jameson said, a little too harsh for his liking. No words were exchanged as they went upstairs. Jameson was checking out the artwork on the walls along the stairway and taking in the whole scene of the office. So, with that, I'd like to leave it at that. I hope you'll buy the book. I hope you'll enjoy it if you buy it. I want to say that the cover art was a painting that was done by my wife, Cindy, a number of years ago for me, and I think it just makes a great cover for the book. Her artwork, by the way, can be found at vivifineart.com. That's V as in Victor, I-V-I, fineart.com. Thanks for listening, and have a great day.